Yeah, that about sums up this run. Hello everyone and welcome. Today we answer the question, can you beat Elden Ring with only Frenzied Flame incantations? I picked the Prophet class for the 16 faith levels and named her Crazy Eye Lady because I just could not think of anything funny and we're off. Okay, so the rules of this run are pretty simple. I can only use Frenzied Flame incantations and I have to finish the game. Can't get much more straightforward than that. Of the 5 available incantations, one of them is basically worthless offensively, one of them is worthless 99% of the time, and the other 3 are somewhere between meh and yeah, it's alright. The main issue is that Madness, the status that Frenzied Flame spells inflict, is basically worthless in PvE. It does work on some enemies, but for the large majority of bosses, it does absolutely nothing. Regardless, over in Weeping Peninsula I pick up my first incantation, the Flame of Frenzy. This incantation shoots multiple fire lightning bolts out of our eyes in an arc in front of us. The damage is actually really good, especially if multiple bolts hit a single enemy. It also works great at controlling space. I mean, look at this range. The drawback is casting it too much will cause us to go insane. Just like how you'd be insane not to check out today's sponsor, Ridge Wallet. Do all of your friends make fun of you for having a big, bulky wallet? Well, it's time to just throw that thing in the ocean and become the envy of all with a beautiful and sleek Ridge Wallet. Might want to take everything out of that first one though. I love this wallet, and I'm not just saying that because it can hold up to 12 cards and cash, or because it comes with a lifetime guarantee with RFID blocking technology, but because it's honestly just a really convenient wallet to have in today's world. But wait, there's more. Ridge also makes these incredible durable key cases that hold up to 6 keys. I bet this random sorcerer wouldn't have lost his Academy Glintstone key if he had one of these Ridge key cases. And right now you can use my link, ridge.com/doomwolf, to get the best offer of up to 40% off until December 22nd. That's ridge.com/doomwolf. I'll even put it down in the description to make it easier. And if that isn't enough to convince you, here is some footage of the wallet being completely unfazed by a torch. How cool is that? Or how hot, I suppose. Anyway, big thanks again to Ridge for sponsoring me. Now back to our normal programming. Up next, I have to do something that I never do in real life. Talk to a girl. Arena here starts off a quest chain I'm going to want to complete. All she asks us to do is deliver a letter to her dear old dad who's up defending Castle Morn. Unfortunately, he puts his duty ahead of family and yeah, I don't think he's winning any Father of the Year awards. Edgar's biggest concern was that the sword of Castle Morn would get into the hands of a misbegotten, which it did. Just A+ is all around for that guy. He's doing a great job. So it's up to me to fight the Leonine and get the sword back. Side note, does anyone find it weird that this particular one isn't wielding the grafted greatsword? Like, later the one with the Golden Order greatsword does, so why doesn't this one? Anyway, I was worried about this fight, not because I thought the boss would be hard, but because I haven't really fought any Leonine misbegotten since my very first playthrough, and all I remember about them is that they're really fast. Yep, like that. It doesn't help that at this point I was very much so in the hold R1 longer to do more damage line of thinking, not really noticing that his poise is so low an uncharged attack can also stagger him. Eventually the misbegotten goes down and we head over to Edgar and Arena's cold dead body to tell Edgar how terrible of a father he is and that he should feel bad. Up next is Margit who, unlike the Leonine before him, absolutely does not get staggered by our attacks. That's fine, he has a couple big windows for us to attack after and in no time at all he goes down. In Stormveil Castle, I learned the Banished Knight can be staggered. Good information for later, and also the only interesting thing that happened here. We have literally no use for the Claw Talisman, so it's just off to fight everyone's favorite grafted lunatic, Godric. We're looking to bait out his tornado gymnastics routine because we can literally just run underneath him and fully charge a Flame of Frenzy for big damage. At first I thought this and maybe the jump attack would be the only safe windows, but I quickly learned we can kinda just stand outside of Godric's range and hit him. Phase 2, the fight gets even easier as several of his Dragon Flame attacks leave him wide open. In the end I decide to style on him and he goes down mid-swing. So far I'm feeling pretty confident about this run. Don't worry, that'll change. Emerging from the back of Stormveil, we meet a lovely lady that is pivotal to our run, Hyetta. Hyetta here only asks for some delicious Shabriri grapes. Conveniently, we picked one up about 12 seconds ago next to some eyeless ghost dude. Probably unrelated. Most of Hyetta's questline happens in Liurnia, so I'm going to get that out of the way real fast. I spend about 5 minutes wandering around like an idiot looking for the entrance to the Purified Runes before I realized there was an entire side building that I missed. Grab the grape, give it to Hyetta, then head over to the Revenger's Shack to take on the world's #1 dad, Edgar the Revenger. I'm honestly not sure why he invades us. Earlier he said he would take revenge on the misbegotten that killed Arena, but I'm not that, so I don't know. But some good news is that player-like enemies can be inflicted with madness. So that's neat. Edgar drops a Shabriri grape and we take it back to Hyetta where she learns the truth that those grapes are made out of people! She takes it pretty well. As any connoisseur of delectable foods will tell you, the more she ate, the more her taste became refined, and now no normal eyes will do. No, she needs special eyes. But first, I make a quick stop at totally not the Eye of Sauron and pick up our second spell, Howl of Shabriri. This incantation does very little damage, but does inflict madness on anyone around us, which, again, is pretty much useless, but it also has the nice benefit of buffing all our damage by 25% for 40 seconds, while also increasing damage taken by 30%. Just can't have nice things, can I? Alright, it's time to pick those special grips. I guess he's the crazier one between us. Round 2 goes much better, with Vike taking a lot of random swings that would never connect before finally showing us why Howl of Shabriri is a horrible move to use mid-combat. Not far from where he's fought, we can kill this Teardrop Scarab for our third and final incantation for a while, Frenzied Burst. Why is it always rats? Frenzied Burst is a very long-range spell that has higher FP cost but lower madness buildup. I'll tell you right now, these two spells are the bread and butter of this run. Back at Bellum Church, I give the special grape to Hyetta, who is a little too into it. Then we make our way to the academy. Yeah, I have a feeling I'm gonna like this spell. Running through the academy like an absolute mad lad, stopping for nothing until I get to the good pupper, the Red Wolf of Radagon. At first, I was worried he'd jump out of the way of all my attacks, but then I remembered. He has the health bar of a gnat. In the end, the Red Wolf takes an eye laser point blank and goes down. After that victory, we head up the ramp, avoid the world's biggest bowling ball, sneak past Moongrum towards a shortcut door, only to immediately get a humbling shotgun blast to the face. I love this game. Throwing open the doors to the library, it's time to talk about Rennala. So first, any boss that has multiple health bars is always going to be a concern in a run like this, because if we're out of mana, that's just it, the fight's over and we lose. The plan for phase 1 is to simply use the Flame of Frenzy on the Sweetings. We don't have to kill them as a single hit will break the shield, but they have so little health, and with how many bolts we fire, it's actually great at clearing them out. Rinse and repeat a few times until Rennala goes into phase 2. Oh, that doesn't feel like a lot of damage. Oh, that was a lot of damage. Another round of Sweetings beatings later, and I'm back. Let's see how much Frenzied Burst does. Oh, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? Okay, it's a bit of a big problem when she manages to just dodge the attack altogether. I only had a handful of casts left, and that is, definitely more than a handful of casts worth of health. I'm going to need to go somewhere else. I decided if Queen Rennala didn't want me to take her out, maybe her daughter would, so I head up to the Caria Manor only to be quest blocked by Loretta. That's fine, I fought her plenty of times. So, is it too late to change runs? After Loretta so kindly showed me that I'm in fact not hot shit at this game, I remembered I still haven't fought the Crystallion, and leveling up my weapon would probably help in both these fights. It was down in these tunnels though that I learned an important lesson. Madness procs reduce FP. I did not know that. I'm not joking or making this up for content. I didn't research this run very much before starting, and I did my best to avoid self-inflicted madness, so I hadn't noticed until right now. This means that mana-intensive fights like Rennala are going to be an even bigger pain in the dick because I have to wait for madness to go down, but I'll get to that later. I grab the bell bearing from the Crystallion and make my seal a +8, but do you know what that did? Absolutely nothing. Loretta still kicked my teeth in a few times. Now, there were things I could have done to make this fight even easier, like gone to Altus Plateau and picked up a few more items, but no. I decided I needed to hate myself more than normal, and I didn't want to progress further into the game world just yet. Loretta was definitely doable, I just needed to find a couple of openings. I guess I just don't get to attack, do I? The first thing I should do is realize that Elden Ring is just Dark Souls 2, and enemies standing in water take reduced fire damage, which inconveniently is what all my damage is classified as. I sure hope there aren't any other bosses that have massive water pools in their arena. The best opening she gives is actually during her signature attack, Loretta Slash. As long as I don't position myself behind the horse after the roll, there's enough time to get off a Flame of Frenzy. Eventually, after 45 minutes of attempts, Royal Knight Loretta falls. At least the harder version of her won't stand in 1-inch high water. I chat with Ronnie, but don't tell her how much I think her mom sucks, and she agrees to go on a date with me. That's a dumb dragon. Ronnie, you have a dumb pet dragon. I'm still not ready to take on Rennala, so I head to High Road Cave where I absolutely decimate the Golem for the Blue Dancer Charm, then to Weeping Peninsula to fight the Erdtree Avatar who is very allergic to fire for the Crimson Burst here, and finally back to the Academy for Radagon's Icon. I then realized getting the Blue Dancer Charm was a complete waste of time, as it only increases the physical damage to attacks. Cool! But I'm hopeful that the levels I got will be enough for Rennala. Knowing that each head-splitting madness proc will take a chunk of FP, I have to be really careful with how I attack. But boy do I like to live dangerously. What this means is that I basically hide behind indestructible walls far away from her and her Sweetings, waiting for my madness bar to deplete. Riveting gameplay, ain't it? Going into phase 2 with 4.5 bars, I'm feeling a bit nervous, and that's when my fears are confirmed. I just don't have enough mana to down Rennala. I really didn't want to go to Altus without having beaten her, but even if I did, there isn't much to do there. Without 2 Shard Bearers defeated, I can't get into the capital. The 5 remaining are Rennala, Radahn, Mog, Malenia, and Rykard. I've already established Rennala isn't doable outside of maybe a perfect no-hit fight. Malenia just straight up isn't accessible to me at this point. Mog and Rykard both have their own problems I'll get into later, so that just leaves Radahn. But Radahn doesn't spawn until after you've made it to Altus Plateau. So, with a heavy heart, I decide to take the Dectus lift up. I grab a few seeds for extra flasks, then took on Demi-Human Queen Gillica, who, was just kind of in the way. Grabbing the Ritual Sword Talisman, I warp to Caelid to fight the Putrid Avatar, who is thankfully also quite allergic to fire. This gives me the Flame Shot and Crack tier, which will boost my fire damage for 2.5 minutes. Last on my list of errands was to head up to Fort Lythe for the Fire Scorpion Charm, increasing my fire damage even more, but also increasing my damage taken. With my newfound strength, I decide to give Rennala another shot. Phase 1 goes exactly the same as before. Flame of Frenzy when she's down, hide behind the bookshelf when she's up. Phase 2, I decide to play the safer game of staying away and using Frenzied Burst. Downside is this costs more mana, but the upside is she won't eviscerate me with magic, so, you know, give and take. Sure enough, Rennala goes down on this attempt. But boy, I sure couldn't make any more mistakes than I did. If it weren't for the law of this land and the golden butthole on the side of my screen, you'd be dead where you sit, lady. I immediately go grab the next bell bearing because I know I'm going to need it, and then I get an extra talisman pouch from the fingers. At this point, I'm wearing 2 different talismans that increase my damage taken, but hey, just don't get hit and it's not a problem, right? Well, that kind of is a problem because the next 2 options for fights are either the Draconic Tree Sentinel who hits like a semi, or Radahn who has 2 semis for swords. Neither one's a good time. I decide to try my luck with the Demon Lorax first, and I just want to point out kind of an annoying quirk of the Flame of Frenzy spell specific to this fight. 2 fully charged bursts are enough to stagger him, but the problem is that the final bolt to hit him isn't the one that staggers him, it was one of the final few. Since the fly farting in his direction from 12 miles away is enough to take him out of the stagger animation, it meant I wasn't able to get a 3rd fully charged attack off, and honestly, I'm just salty about that. I decided to switch over to Radahn, where my whole strategy was run away and fire lasers at him. If I happened to get close, I would switch to Flame of Frenzy, and that was usually a bad idea. It was then I made a discovery that made this fight way, way easier. I can cast from horseback. I definitely knew I could do this, but because I don't ever do this fight with Torrent, I kinda just forgot. Either way, it makes the running away and eye-beaming strat laughably easy. In the final moments of the fight, I was getting a bit greedy, but the absolute chad of a horse donkey thing Torrent took the final attack for me and Radahn falls. As great a victory as this was, it also just means I'm back to fighting the Draconic Tree Sentinel, but for anyone out there crazy enough to do this run, I found a neat little strategy. When the Tree Sentinel charges you, charge him back. He will almost always do this jump attack, and as long as you're sprinting at him, you'll avoid the hitbox. Right after you run past him, rotate the stick to the left a little bit and you'll end up on the horse's left side. This will make it so he might do an attack with a shield and you're already far enough away that it won't hit. He might also decide to throw fire, which unfortunately you just gotta tank, or he'll just outright dodge the attack, but those are few and far between. In one instance I was really unlucky and he decided to just obliterate me with his hammer, but in all my attempts he only did this one time, so worth the risk I guess? Or you can just stand far away and he ignores you while you fire at him. I don't know why he isn't aggroing back onto me, but we take those, and after a few more frenzied bursts, he goes down. Entering the capital, I'm reminded of what high school is like by having to walk behind someone who walks way slower than me, then I take a nice break to stand on the rooftops and scream my heart out. So, just a regular Tuesday, honestly. Hopping up the dragon, we head to the Ritual Shield Talisman, and this is where I normally take on Godfrey, but instead of going up, how about we go down? The sewers are a confusing and dangerous maze. Normally, when I get to this omen, I decide to just ignore him and climb the ladder. The problem is that he'll usually hit me and knock me off. Since I have superior range, I decided why not try and fight him, which was working great, right up until I backed up into these basilisks and they decided I just didn't get to live anymore. Out of anger, I decided to attempt the sewer skip I saw in a video once, failed at that 6 times, ran past the omen, and died exactly the way I knew I would. At this point, out of spite, I murder hoboed the entire local wildlife before eye-beaming the omen into oblivion. You think I'd be rewarded for all my efforts, but this is Elden Ring and the only reward is more pain. I am actually just tickling this man. Yeah, Mog isn't happening right now, but I will definitely be back for you, and when I do return, I will complain. A lot. Back topside, it's time to take on Godfrey, who at first I was worried about, thinking I'll only have small windows after certain attacks to retaliate, but then I remembered he's too cool to be in a rush. I literally just ran to one end of the arena, screamed, and shot eye lasers at him. It was the easiest fight in the whole run. Well, second easiest, but I'll get to that later. Morgott went basically exactly the same. I thought I would only have small windows to attack, but in both phases, he just decided not to dodge out of the way of my projectiles. I'm not complaining, I just expected him to be a little bit more angry at being blasted from a continent away. With him out of the way, the world is basically open to us. First order of business is to make my seal a plus 20 and then give the fire giant a go. The damage from Flame of Frenzy is actually pretty bonkers when all the bolts connect. Speaking of connections, this is about when my Unga Bunga brain realized I should be trying to aim the bolts to where the explosions on the ground hit the target and not just the bolts flying through the air. The fire giant decided to give me a demonstration on what properly aiming an attack would do. Fire giant's definitely doable right now, but an extra boost to attack, say a 20% increase from the Frenzied Flame Seal, would be nice. Unfortunately, that's what's behind Mog, and yeah, he still isn't happening. So let's switch it up. Normally I wouldn't go towards Malenia this early, but I've got to get to her eventually, so why not? I grab half a decorative plate from Albus and head north to Castle Sol. Commander Nile is pretty easy. His 2 banished knights get stunned by my spells, so they aren't that hard to deal with, and the commander himself is pretty slow. I have to admit though, I figured the ice and electric boss in the snowy mountaintops of the giants would be weak to fire, but he's not. He's slightly resistant to it. Well, whatever, he goes down after 2 tries and then we can glue our plates back together and use it to get to the consecrated snowfield. Here we grab our 4th incantation, Unendurable Frenzy. Basically, it's Flame of Frenzy, but we can channel it. I really wanted this spell to be good, but the damage ends up not being a proportional trade-off for draining a whole mana bar. You have no idea how happy I would be if update 1.08 said they removed these archers from the game. Falling down the Halig tree until I get to Loretta, she's largely unchanged from the first time I fought her, but I did realize that whenever she summons her magic homing bullshit swords, there is enough time to get an attack off. Other than that, I just stick to her during her slashes, then aim right at the ground for big damage, and eventually she goes down. I grabbed the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman, but I never actually ended up using it. Then it's time to see everyone's favorite disease mommy, Malenia, who is standing in a bed of water. Awesome. Fortunately, she actually has no resistance to fire, and doubly fortunate, she doesn't dodge our Frenzied Burst. For phase 1, I literally just ran away and shot at her. The only danger is Waterfowl because it can close any distance, but because I have a reaction time faster than a dead squirrel, it's fine. Phase 2 isn't easy because she is way more aggressive, but the strategy of run away until she does something is still perfectly viable. She likes to do Scarlet Aeonia at lower health, and that leaves her wide open. After only 5 tries, we burn her down. That was a nice distraction, but back on the mountaintops, it's time for the blazing rematch with the Fire Giant. Did I say rematch with a Fire Giant? I meant Operation Do Things to make myself stronger. First, I make a stop at the Golden Lineage Evergel to take on totally not phase 1 Godric to get the Godfrey icon, which increases the damage of my charge spells. Then, I absolutely torch the Ulcerated Tree Spirit in Mount Gilmer for the Cerulean Hidden Tear, and finally I pick up Golden Vow. With all my buffs, Flame of Frenzy is now doing nearly 3,000 damage to the Fire Giant per cast. That's crazy damage for my channel, but something didn't feel right. Golden Vow is only a buff, but it's not a Frenzied Flame incantation, so after much deliberation, I did the only reasonable thing. I threw myself off a cliff, removed it from my bar, and started the fight again. When the Fire Giant takes a knee, I could have fought him face to face, but where's the fun in that? So I just ride around and away from him, blasting him from max range. Eventually, he goes down, and now, there's nowhere left to run. It's time to fight Mog. Final preparations for this fight is to grab the Primal Glintstone Blade Talisman and a few more seeds for flasks. I gave myself 11 blue and 2 red just in case I made a mistake. Screaming like a madman and drinking the fire tier, I do 269 nice damage. I know what you're thinking. That looks like a lot of damage to his health bar, but here's the problem. The majority of those buffs are going to go away. Losing Howl of Shabriri, my damage drops to 215. The fire tier, it drops again to 179, and if I'm ever not at full health, it's 163. The damage gained from reapplying Howl of Shabriri isn't worth it because I'll only have enough time for 1 or maybe 2 attacks before it falls off again, so I'd rather just use the FP for actually hitting the boss. So while the burst phase at the beginning, if you can even call it that, is nice, it's incredibly short-lived, and then I move into the run to each corner of the arena and hit him once, repeat phase. I really want to emphasize how annoying this is. There's only enough time to do 1 attack per cycle. Rarely you can do 2, but it depends on what Mog does. Overall, the successful fight took 30 minutes. That is 30 minutes of not letting a boss hit me every 10 to 15 seconds. Needless to say, I got really good at this Mog fight. right up until I accidentally rolled into the wall with Fireblood goop on it, because of course I did, but at that point I had already done enough damage overall, so I was able to finish him off. Sure hope I don't see him again. Grabbing our final incantation, Inescapable Frenzy, I drop in on our old friend Hayata, who basically tells me to get naked and open that big demon door. Hi, yes, Mr. Three Fingers, I've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. Hayata asked me to touch her, but we aren't married yet, so she promptly bursts into flames, giving me the Frenzied Flame Seal. Shortly after that, I get dumped by Melina, but she said she would kill me, so I probably dodged a bullet. Back on track, my new incantation is largely useless in the regular game. You embrace the enemy to spread madness, but not only can you not grab most enemies, as I said before, hardly anything can be inflicted with madness. However, there are a few, and I know just who to test it on. Parry that, you fucking casual. I decided to do Volcano Manor next, not because I'm going to take on Rykard, but because I want to give more hugs to the local citizens of the lands between. Yeah, that's nice. If only someone could give me a hug. Oh wait, I can do that. Yeah, still nice. I grab the Finger Slayer Blade, then take on the Regal Ancestor Spear, and Jesus Christ, that's a lot of damage. It's like hunting Bambi with a cannon. Speaking of cannons, next up is Estelle. Unfortunately, I vastly underestimated how badly I suck at this game and didn't bring enough healing flasks, but we still hit like a truck, so he goes down second try. With that, it's time to ascend the chains, light myself on fire, and then throw myself into the ramen bowl in the sky. Waking up in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, I challenge everyone's favorite boss, Godskin Duo. Having a ranged attack makes this fight much easier. I beam down the Noble, and anytime he starts to roll at me, I still fucking die because this boss is trash. I also learned in this fight that Frenzied Burst can go through these pillars. But only sometimes. Hey Possum, that's a tiny amount of health you have there. It'd be a shame if someone were to scream at you. Ha! That's for all the pain you caused me and everyone else in this game. Oh cool, not only are the birds the strongest enemy in this game, but now they've learned to break the laws of physics. Awesome. Malekith is up next. In phase 1, I'm looking to bait a very specific attack, whenever he drags his dagger on the ground. I just have to run away and then shoot eye lasers at him. If you're close enough, you can also get an attack off when he throws his big rock, but that's a little bit tighter. Phase 2, the only 100% safe window I found was after his big acrobatics display that ends in a twirl. This is why you don't take risks, kids. This one mistake cost me about another hour of attempts, by the way, but it's fine. I like this fight. I love watching Malekith jump around like he has rabies. It's fine. I'm not salty. In the end, I didn't even learn my lesson because if he chose to run at me here, I could have missed and died, but oh well, I win. Hey Gideon, listen. I know we've had some rough times in the past, but I think we should just hug out our differences. Godfrey is up next, who, fun fact, is actually tarnished, but can't be afflicted with madness because of course he can't. Phase 1 is exactly the same as before. Run away and I-beam him. When he transitions to big roars, there is enough time to get off a fully charged Flame of Frenzy, but after that we just go back to running away and shooting him. Horaloo is more of the same. Frenzied Burst when he tries to blow the arena apart, and Flame of Frenzy for the transition. Before long, he goes down. We're close to the end of the challenge, but there are a few other bosses I want to bring down. First, in Deeproot Depths, I take on Fia's champions. Man, this spell is awesome. My first plan for Fortisax was to stand around his feet and shoot the Flame of Frenzy at him. But then I remember this fight is trivial with any kind of range attack. I mean, come on, from give the poor dragon a ranged option. Even Calamite in Dark Souls 1 has a gap closer. In the end, I run backwards, screamed, tried to be anime, missed, then shot a final laser at his face. Placiduous Axe is a bit tougher because I'm not laughably overleveled, but considering every bolt of the Flame of Frenzy is easy to land, yeah, that's good damage. He still took me a couple of tries because he hits like a dump truck full of dump trucks, but I take aim for a cool anime shot, get hit, am too afraid to wait for another shot, and he goes down. With that, it's time to face the two bosses I was afraid of this run. First up, Rykard. Yeah, this isn't happening. Rykard has a ludicrous 80% fire absorption on top of having like 80,000 total health. Even if the boss never moved and I only ever got headshots, I don't think I have enough Estus to kill him with my current setup. Lucky for me, I found the super secret hidden 6th Frenzied Flame spell, Frenzied Cut in the Face with a big ass spear. Yeah, Rykard gets a pass because he's a gimmick boss, but I can't really say the same for the next fight, Mog, Lord of Blood. Okay, here we go. I cannot beat Mog. Wait, before you leave a comment saying I'm trash, at least let me explain to you why. With math. This version of Mog has 18,389 health, Following the same logic as the first time I fought him, I do 190 damage per cast, and at 9 casts that is 1710 damage per mana bar, meaning I would need 10.75 mana bars to beat him. Except that's not actually true, is it? We all know Mog likes to knee heal us, and in doing so restores about 25% of his total health, approximately 4600 HP, meaning his actual total is 22,986. Redoing this calculation, that means I need about 13.5 mana flasks to fully deplete his health. Conveniently, my total flask count right now is 13, and I do know I could get more if I wanted to hunt down some golden seeds, so this sounds like a doable fight. But wait, there's more. When Mog transitions to phase 2, even if I have the Purifying Crystal tier on, I still take a small amount of damage. This is just unavoidable, meaning I need to either have one red flask to restore my HP, or have some kind of talisman or armor to gradually restore my health. For those of you wondering, no, I can't put the Crimson Burst tier into my physique because I need both the Flame Shrouded tier for damage and the Purifying Crystal tier to, well, not die. Not in full health, Frenzied Burst only does 162 damage per shot. Now I know what you're thinking, just get one more flask and stay at full health in phase 2. But let me ask you, have you ever stayed at full health and stayed away from Mog in phase 2? He constantly throws Blood Flame crap all over the arena, usually behind the player, making it incredibly hard to run away from him without getting hit by it, and staying close obviously means there isn't a safe time to attack him. Taking that into consideration, I'm going to put some math on screen right now, basically showing the lowest amount of damage I can reliably do in phase 1 and 2, then calculating that total I would need 15 mana bars to take him down. But wait, I hear you shout, this isn't counting the damage you can do before the buff falls off in phase 1. Taking that into consideration, this fight should be doable. And you know what? You're absolutely right. These numbers aren't accounting for the added damage I can do in the first 2.5 minutes of the fight. It also doesn't account for the secret extra way to deal damage I haven't revealed to you until right now, as it's convenient for my storytelling. Headshots. A headshot on Mog while fully buffed will do a whopping 427 damage. Even with only the Ritual Sword Talisman, it still does 285. Using this number for our calculations, we get a much more manageable 10 total mana bars needed to bring him down. On paper, this does sound totally manageable, but in practice, not so much. Like I said, phase 2 Mog is incredibly hard to get away from without taking even the smallest amount of damage, and these numbers depend completely on headshots. The only way to get those are to either free aim the camera, and good luck with that, or stand at the top of the stairs while Mog is positioned correctly at the bottom. In the end, Frenzied Flame only Mog is mathematically possible, but statistically improbable, and I spent an entire page of my script complaining about it. Oh, I also tried to do the Mog cheese, but I guess that was patched out, so... After going outside to touch grass, it's time to take on Radagon, who is much, much easier. There is always enough time for a fully charged Frenzied Burst at the beginning of the fight, and he has several attacks that all have long enough windows for at least an uncharged Flame of Frenzy. Couple that with Radagon having no resistance to fire, he's a cakewalk. Elden Beast suffers the same as Placidusax, where his body is just so big it would be harder to miss him with my attacks. To make it even easier, he's so slow there are multiple windows to get fully charged casts off. What I'm trying to say is, Elden Beast is an easy final boss, and with that, I have beaten Elden Ring with only Frenzied Flame incantations. Big thanks to my wonderful patrons, stay beautiful y'all, and until next time my friends, don't you dare go hollow.